Just like to introduce Trina Parker and Jess Ross, who are doing a sheep presentation from BEC Feed. It's on comparative selenium levels from sheep milk to food.
Hello, just before we get started, I suppose I should introduce BEC Feed Solutions. We are a manufacturer of vitamin and mineral premixes, and we also supply feed ingredients to New Zealand. So selenium is essential for life. Selenium plays a major role in protecting cells. It is an antioxidant. It's also required for proper functioning of the thyroid gland, regulates the immune system, and regulates the reproductive systems as well. New Zealand is selenium deficient. We are routinely fertilising with selenium and adding selenium into animal diets to try and meet selenium requirements. But what about our own selenium needs? In many countries, innovative functional foods such as selenium-enriched eggs, meat and milk have been successfully introduced. New Zealand is a breeding ground of innovation, and we happen to be selenium deficient, and we happen to produce and consume a lot of dairy products. So we're here today to put forward the idea of selenium straight from the sheep. So let's look at our current selenium situation. The selenium cycle in the food chain of land animals and humans starts from the soil. Indeed, soils are the major source of selenium for plants, and therefore also for the animals eating those plants, and for the humans eating those animals and animal products and plants. In New Zealand, it's well known that our soils are selenium deficient. Interestingly, it hasn't been proven yet that selenium in any form is an essential nutrient for plants. So if selenium is present in the soil, it will make its way into the plant. If it's not present in the soil, the plant will grow anyway. This means that if selenium is not in the soil, it won't appear in the plants, and if it's not in the plants or the crops, then our livestock aren't getting any either, and neither are we, unless we supplement selenium separately. So if selenium is in the soil, there are still many factors which affect its bioavailability to the plant. For example, soil acidity, decreasing soil pH reduces selenium assimilation. Sulfate competes with sodium selenate. Selenium can be leached from topsoil, and calcium sulfate also reduces selenium availability for plants. If selenium is in the soil, the plant absorbs it and synthesizes or makes selenium, of which there are two types, organic selenium, of which there are two types. But selenium from animals and animal products is present almost exclusively as selenomethionine. It's interesting to note that the richest source of selenium for human consumption is the Brazil nut, and selenomethionine is the major source of selenium in that nut. So, since selenium levels in the soil vary and selenium availability to plants also depends on many factors, the general agricultural practice around the world and in New Zealand includes fertilising and selenium supplementation. So, understanding that New Zealand soils are particularly selenium deficient, what are the recommendations for selenium supplementation for sheep? Well, many of these are listed on the slide here. I should also mention that many drenches and vaccines are also salinised, but the majority of these are inorganic sources of selenium, and they're also given once a year, most predominantly prior to mating. On the other hand, what are the consequences if we don't supplement with selenium? Beef and lamb list clinical signs of selenium deficiency on their fact sheet. Inadequate selenium supplementation to sheep can lead to infertility in ewes, decreased sperm quality in rams, white muscle disease in lambs, and poor lamb growth rates. So we know we need to provide selenium to sheep, but what if we could not only provide selenium to sheep to meet the sheep's requirements, but also have sheep produce a natural selenium-enriched dairy product for humans, selenium directly from the sheep? How would we do this? How would we get selenium-enriched products directly from the sheep? It would make sense to provide selenium to the sheep in the form that they would naturally receive it, and in the form that they store it in their tissues. However, it is apparent that the inorganic forms, such as sodium selenate, dominate the supplement range, which is what we saw on the previous slide. Which leads to the question, which selenium source is the best, inorganic or organic? It is now extremely well documented in the scientific literature that there are big limitations to using inorganic selenium. Some of these limitations include toxicity at low levels, interactions with other minerals and vitamins, and low bioavailability to the animal, and poor transfer into the meat, milk, and eggs. In addition to this, ruminants face a particular problem with inorganic selenium sources, as their rumen microbes actually interfere with inorganic selenium and render the selenium mostly unavailable to the animal. This means that we need to be a lot smarter about how we supplement selenium, especially in an already deficient country. Data accumulated over the last 10 years shows clear advantages in replacing inorganic selenium with organic selenium, such as selenomethionine, with this proving to be an effective means of solving selenium problems in the dairy, beef and sheep industries. Some of the advantages of using organic selenium are listed up on the slide, but I won't cover this off because Trina will go into this a bit later. So an innovative organic selenomethionine form that sheep actually store selenium has recently arrived onto the New Zealand market, and we would like to share with you some of our findings regarding selenium transfer into the milk and potential for dairy products to become functional foods, selenium enriched for human health. Before I hand over to Trina, I would like to introduce Silicio, which is a pure source of organic selenium. Silicio is selenomethionine. Silicio is manufactured by French company Addicio, and it recently received the highest 3-star InnovSpace 2014 award. This is an award that recognises innovative new products. What this molecule actually is actually methionine with selenium bound in the place where the sulfur would normally be. Silicio generates more selenium deposition than inorganic sources thanks to its higher bioavailability. So at this point, I'll just hand over to Trina.
Hi there. As Jen has previously discussed, we see a real opportunity here for New Zealand meat, milk, eggs, all animal products really, from an animal health perspective and a human health and value added perspective. But before we launched into selling enriched selenium feed for food, we had to do a project to understand animals' current selenium status via milk. We've just started studying cow milk, sheep milk and goat milk as part of this assessment. It's important to note here that selenium deposition is the same. Organic selenium deposition is similar across all animals, so just because I mention cows, don't be put off. I know you're probably a bit anti-me cow research given it's a sheep milk conference. Last year we had the opportunity to launch, as Jen discussed, Silicio into New Zealand. We had the opportunity for Professor Peter Suroi to speak. He was available one day. He flew from, he was in this part of the world and he was available in New Zealand for one day. So we had filled a room with New Zealand's leading ruminant nutritionists, and we had an open discussion about selenium. The issues identified, which Jen touched on previously, poor conception rates, poor in-calf rates, increasing somatic cell counts, high retained placenta incidence, and that was because of the poor immune status of the animals when they were deficient in selenium. Poor immune status of young stock, so that's got an effect on your lambs. And there hasn't really been any research, any new developments in selenium supplementation, so it's the selenium that we've done for years and years and years. But arguably the situation in New Zealand is getting worse with the more intensively we farm, and also putting more pressure on our animals to produce more is greater draw on their selenium. So that's from an animal health perspective. You may have come across Professor Peter Surai. He's a world-leading expert in antioxidant research for humans and animals, both in vitamin E and selenium. He's developed selenium-enriched eggs, meat and milk throughout Europe. He's got more than 170 published papers. He's actually coming to New Zealand again for 1 day, or 2 days this time. We're a bit lucky, and Jen and I are lucky because people like to come to New Zealand, so we get all the good people. He's speaking at a poultry conference on the 16th of May, so he's in Palmerston North, so if anyone wants to talk to him, he's really keen to talk about any research there. On our website also, that seminar that I discussed in Hamilton in October, his presentation is on our website, so you might look at that as well. The following slides, we've been working with a consultant, Pierre de Villiers. He's been helping us on farm with the delivery of selenium to farms and monitoring milk. So I'd like to thank him for his input into today's presentation. As Jen discussed, ill-thrift white muscle disease in young cattle, reduced milk production and fertility in adult cows. Pierre's found recorded results with selenium supplemented animals versus unsupplemented control animals. There's an improvement in live weight gain in calves, and that's due to the, it's not a direct, like selenium doesn't make them grow, but it does have an impact on their immune status. Increased milk production up to 10% and fertility gains, and improvement of 16% in submission rates and 18% in non-return rates. I'll flick over that one. Selenium and other health, selenium deficiencies in cows is associated with higher milk somatic cell counts and lower resistance to clinical mastitis during early lactation. Higher concentrations of selenium in the plasma of milk were negatively correlated to bulk tank somatic cell counts. As we talked about, lower incidence of mastitis and increased fertility. We've chosen to sample milk selenium because it's a non-invasive test. It's easy, it's quick, and it's only possible with organic selenium, as selenium from selenate and selenite sources doesn't transfer to the tissues, therefore is not able to be tested. We've got data that says that the reference levels for selenium status estimation from milk are that below 0.028 is deficient and 0.065 is adequate. This is a study, there you'll see that in 2000 New Zealand's milk was sampled, and look at that compared to the United States, UK and Australia. So really we've got a long way to go before we even come up to just normal international standards for milk, cheese, yogurt and ice cream. In the studies, the bulk tank selenium, currently it's on 6 farms. The first farm had selenium added to the fertiliser as well as supplementing with liquid selenium in the mixer wagons. And I'd just like to point out that all of these farms have all been supplementing with sodium selenite for years. The first test came back. Our testing through Milk Test New Zealand is not detectable less than 0.025, and after a month on farm 1, we got a rise, and it's been consistent. We'll talk about the levels later if I have time. There was a hint. And on farm 3, they've also had selenium for a month now, and interestingly, it's not showing in the bulk milk test, but there's some interaction going on with zinc and the manganese and iron in the water supply because it's in the Waikato. I'll just say in January on that farm 3 that there wasn't any correlation with the milk. The black line is the somatic cell count, and in January the initial response it spiked, which is expected, and then the somatic cell counts have come down, and although I can't categorically say it was the one product, it's that in conjunction with the milk fat percentage has gone up on last year, and selenium is the only thing that, organic selenium is the only thing that's changed since January again. And also, and the protein level's gone up since January, so it's a marked change, and I can't categorically say that, but we'll continue to test those farms and just race through that next one. I'd just like to point out one thing. You may not, or you can read that. Dairy NZ, in their wisdom, have said, required for disease resistance, etc., etc. There are regions that have high selenium levels in pasture, although what we've come across is there's one coastal Taranaki section of land, but that's about all that we know of. And so they're very hesitant to recommend supplementation. And they only recommend selenium selenite and 1 milligram per 100 kgs of live weight a day. So those farms that we, oops, oh no, my time is up.
I didn't do it.
Oh, sorry. Sorry. Just want to point out that we've been supplementing with selenium for so long now, at some farms 5 milligrams per cow per day, and there's been no detectable levels in milk. When Pierre added organic selenium to the feed at 3.2 milligrams equivalent per day, there was a response was evident within 2 weeks. So current recommendations and selenium options are not transferable to animal tissues nor to animal products and need to be reassessed. As Ken stated, selenium-enriched milk from ewes with optimal selenium status is a real opportunity to improve your already innovative product, or at least bring it into line with other countries and add value where traditional dairy hasn't. So I'd just like you to think about that concept. Thank you.